There were so many times where I actually went into the office with my resignation letter and I kept on backing away. I was like, nope, not now, not now, not now. And then it got to a point where I was just so fed up. The directors at a point of time weren't listening to me, what made me happy, and I just handed it in. And I was like, I'm doing this. If I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. And it's probably been the best decision I've ever made, because 1 year ahead, now doing this full time for one full on year, it's definitely grown. And I wouldn't have been able to put that much love, that much care, that much attention into the business if I was working.
Welcome to Mindful Dream Podcast, where we help you to not lose sight of what's really important whilst chasing your dreams. Today's guest is Nikita Ladwa. She's the founder of The Naked Laundry. She built the company all by herself, and she's been featured in both Netflix and Pop Sugar. Her previous career was in marketing, and she kept The Naked Laundry, the clothing brand, as a side hustle until August 2020. She says that quitting her job was the best thing she's ever done, and she's planning a future where she splits her time between London and Delhi. It was a pleasure to chat with her, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. Welcome, Nikita. It's great to have you on here. We've been talking for a while, like in DMs and things like that, but it's the first time we've actually got to speak somewhat in person.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited. Thank you so much for having me here.
You're welcome. So the first thing I tend to ask my guests is, what's some common advice you disagree with?
Oh gosh. I would say one of the common advice that I disagree with right now is always having one passion and only having one passion. I do think that you can have more than one passions, and just follow it through as long as it makes you happy.
What are your passions at the moment? So I know obviously you've got Naked Laundry and you like, I can see you love that so much. What's some other things you've got going on that you're balancing alongside that?
Outside of my day-to-day job, I absolutely love running. So I try and run every single day. I don't think I'll make much of an athlete, unfortunately, but it's something that balances me out big time. So making sure that my health comes first, making sure my mental well-being comes first, and also that aligns with what I do as my day-to-day job. Because with Naked Laundry being my one goal passion, everything else needs to complement that. So when I say passion, it could be on a different level, but you could also make it work together as well.
So I guess there's the different parts of the Naked Laundry that you're passionate about. So you might really love, I know you love going to your customers and to see them directly. So that's one part you're passionate about. But then you're also passionate about the design. So it's one overall passion, but there's lots of little bits of it that you enjoy too. Is that a fair?
Yeah, exactly that. So my background was actually in marketing, so digital marketing, social media marketing. So I still wanted to be quite connected with that in the business. But then again, fashion was my passion, beauty was my passion, running was my passion. So I'm just trying to put all these puzzle pieces together and actually just make it as a whole. And that in itself is my day-to-day kind of routine, I would say.
And one of the interesting things I think as well, and it's something I'm trying to come to terms with as well. So right now I have the podcast, have the writing, have all this other stuff. And it's trying to get things to kind of have that cohesive feel about them where they're pulling in one direction. And what I guess you've got through Naked Laundry, it enables you to do lots of the things you enjoy under one brand name, under one like overall goal. And was that kind of something which encouraged you to do it, that you knew that you would be able to do all of these different things? Or is it a lucky coincidence?
I would have to say it's a coincidence in all honesty. I think during the pandemic, so I actually went full time with the Naked Laundry around a year ago. And it was because I wanted flexibility. I wanted my own space, my own time, my own management. So I wanted to work on things that made me happy. And that allowed me to do that. So it was very much a coincidence, but it's worked out to the best because I can, work as early as I want, but then leave as early as I want. And although that would be an ideal scenario because I work 24 hours a day, literally, it's literally just trying to manage that and balance it out.
I know you mentioned before, like before we started the call, that you're finding it quite difficult before you started the Naked Laundry. Well, Naked Laundry was going for a long time, but before you were full time into Naked Laundry, that you're struggling to kind of balance it on top of your day job. What was the process through when you decided to actually quit and make the big leap into doing your own thing full time? Was it easy for you, or was it quite a struggle for a long time?
I think so. What had happened was there were so many times where I actually went into the office with my resignation letter and I kept on backing away. I was like, nope, not now, not now, not now. And then it got to a point where I was just so fed up. The directors at a point of time weren't listening to me, what made me happy, and I just handed it in. And I was like, I'm doing this. If I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. And it's probably been the best decision I've ever made, because 1 year ahead, now doing this full time for one full on year, it's definitely grown. And I wouldn't have been able to put that much love, that much care, that much attention into the business if I was working for someone else.
Yeah. So how long do you think you spent over the resignation? So when did you first write that letter, and how often did you kind of keep bringing it in?
It was with me for a good 6 months. It was there at the start of the year, and I just couldn't pluck up the courage. I couldn't do it, because it wasn't the fact that I wouldn't be able to get another job. It was not having a salary. It was not having that comfort blanket of knowing that, okay, I'm going to get this month, this much in this month, and, be able to know what I'm going to get. And obviously going into a business, having zero salary for yourself, it's a very daunting challenge, I would say.
Yeah. And was it just in the end the frustration where you decided that's it? Or was there anything else you did to kind of prepare yourself mentally so that when you did quit your job, you felt more secure?
Nothing secured me. I didn't have backings. I didn't have savings. I didn't have anything. In all honesty, all my savings had gone into the business. All of my salary went into the business while working in the business and working for another company. So it was one frustration, but I needed that push, because if I hadn't walked into that one day where I was like, this isn't for me, I don't think I would have been able to do that. So it was quite important for me to have those emotions in play. Otherwise, I still would have been in a full-time position.
Did you consider at all doing part-time first before going to full-time? Or was that you just knew this is it, I'm going to go full-time? Or was it something you kind of questioned in your mind that maybe I should stagger it?
It was something that I did question. I mean, I loved my job. I genuinely loved my job. I loved marketing. I loved the industry. I loved my position as a social media manager. But as a social media manager, your job in itself is quite demanding. So I don't think I would have been able to balance that job and be the best version of myself for that, and also be the best version of myself for a brand that was somewhat thriving, somewhat peaking, somewhat was going in a direction. So it needed my full-on attention in order for it to take it to the next level.
And you quit last August, right? So do you think
just over a year.
The pandemic had any effect on your decision? Do you think if it wasn't for the pandemic, you might have stayed in your job for longer?
Funny enough, it didn't. It didn't. Like, I was going to do it either way. I was going to leave my job either way. The pandemic, if anything, helped us boost more brand awareness, more sales, more traffic to the website. As you know, a lot of the businesses were closing down. A lot of the major branches were closing down. So people were in this mindset to actually support smaller businesses, smaller local businesses more than anything. So it went from word of mouth to doing large campaigns, to being on Netflix, to being in magazines and working with stylists. And then everything kind of just sped up the process in the whole last year. Now, when I reflect back onto it, I can't believe it's only been a year since I actually quit my job.
This year has just flown by. So I can't remember my day job anymore. It's only been 3 months, but it feels like a different lifetime ago.
Yeah. I can't see myself being in an office. I can't. Like, this is me now. So, and I feel like this is what works well for me.
So, like, rewinding a bit in terms of when you started it, because it's been like a long journey for you to get to that point where you handed in that notice. Was there any points where you ever considered giving up, and how did you get through that and build your confidence back up again?
Yeah, giving up in terms of not having motivation, yes, I have had that. Because you just wake up and you're like, you are only battling it with your own mind. There is no other person where you can talk about it or, bounce off ideas. But then when you see customers that are super happy and they're super proud of wearing your pieces, that's what kind of pushes you to do bigger and better things. Giving up in the circumstance of maybe pushing it back a day, but not giving up fully. I don't think I would ever give up on it.
No, it's just great to hear, because I think sometimes people have the things that they have on the side and they question themselves, like, can I make this? Can I not make that? And it's always just interesting to see how different people react to that and how they get through that so they can continue doing what they love.
You do question yourself a lot. You question your position. You question whether you can actually take on what's happening. You question your abilities, your skill sets. But once you finish that project, once you've gone through those hurdles, once you've actually done what you need to do, and for us, we're quite fortunate because our ideas come in real life. Everything that I do, everything I say, it's very much a tangible product. When you see it, you assure yourself that you are worth it.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing in comparison to me, I guess, where obviously I have imposter syndrome. I think everybody does. But because my product is information in a way, it's sometimes you have those crisis of confidence moments, right? Because I don't necessarily have something to say, look, I've made this and this is good. I've got to rely on like critical feedback and people kind of enjoying it. So it's nice for you to have that physical product. And you said like you've got into Netflix, you've got into different magazines. Was any moment of like one thing which happened was like, I've made it now, like this is going to happen. This is that tipping point that I can't go back on this now?
I think it's every article, in all honesty. So when we had that exposure, and it wasn't even to do with the business, it was about me. And I was like, hold on, someone wants to write a piece about me? Like, this is a magazine that I used to read when I was a kid. So it was last year in Pop Sugar, where we had an article about the Naked Laundry and me and, our journey. It made me believe that people do believe in this. I already knew I believed in it. I knew I had the motivation, but when you try and portray that to other people, you don't want people to think that you're completely bonkers, that it's only in your head. Like, you want them to know that, hold on, there's a gap. You need this product. Otherwise, you'll lose behind with it.
It's that thing of like where it shouldn't sometimes matter, but for me at least, having those kind of people reach out to me. So being in Wired or whatever like that, it makes a difference, right? Because it's that external validation that you're not crazy, that this is good, like people want this.
Yeah.
And I know some people are very purist and say you shouldn't need that, like it should be all about your own dreams, but then it does help, I find, just to know that people are resonating with what you're doing. Is there anything at the moment that you're struggling with? So I know you always seem very busy and there's a lot going on. One thing that Nikita does is she always has her business life in her stories on Instagram. I see the kind of chaos and how busy it is and how she's managing to get her orders fulfilled.
Every day is a struggle, in all honesty, trying to balance life, in all honesty. So, for example, when we booked this session in, I had to cancel all of my meetings during the day, pushed it the day after, because I just don't know what's going to come up. And as much as I try and plan to the minute, it never works out. It never works out. So just trying to balance work, life, eating on time, meeting everyone's deadlines, because although it's just me right now, I work on India's time zone. So by the time that I even wake up, India's already 5.5 hours ahead of me, or 4.5 hours ahead of me. So they are already wanting these answers. And then by the time I finish that, I have my stockist chasing me. What's happening with a new collection? When's the marketing campaign going out? And then I'm moving on to the next collection. So it's trying to prioritize what's important for what team at what time.
Is it at the moment, do you do it 7 days a week, or are you trying to kind of protect some days?
Right now it's 7 days a week. It's 7 days a week. Even when I am out and about, and say if I've got a weekend away, I'll have my laptop, I'll have my phone, because we have a live chat. So on our live chat, I need to be available when customers need me to be.
The live chat isn't 24/7, right? You let yourself sleep.
I mean, yes. I will have, you'll be surprised, I have some customers messaging just before midnight, and some days I am up till 2:00. So they've just caught me at times saying they need something for the next day. So I have to be as accessible as possible. I hope that one day someone else can take this over for me. So someone that works in the customer service team. That is the plan for me, is to outsource people now.
Yeah. So how do you balance everything at the moment? So you said you try to plan things to the minute. Is there any other kind of strategies you use to get everything done and to stay sane at the same time?
Yeah, I try and plan the night before. So one thing that I've been doing is a lot of like journaling, a lot of like notes, a lot of like bullet pointing, a lot of numbering. So making sure that I am only doing the things that are important, to avoid last minute creative ideas. Now, working in the creative field, you will have, that spark moment. And you'll be like, I need to hop onto this trend. I need to do this. I need to contact this influencer. But it's more so ticking off the major projects and then having those soft projects later to make you feel more fulfilled. I think that's what I'm trying to balance right now.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I want to take a quick break to ask you to check in on yourself. There's many people struggling with balance, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. The tips that my guests and I share can hopefully help you along the way. But if you already feel overwhelmed or burnt out, it's probably best that you ask somebody for help too. For some, this might be a friend or family member, but others might feel like they have nobody they can talk to. If you're one of these people, check out the link in the show notes. It's for United for Global Mental Health. They've got helplines all across the world with people willing to listen on the other side. It's important to let somebody know how you're feeling. Now, back to the show. Do you have any general daily routines? So you said it, you wake up in the morning and it tends to be the India stuff at the beginning. Do you try to kind of block out time? So this hour in the morning is for this hour and it's for that? Or do you feel like it's quite reactive at the moment? So how much of it do you get to control and how much is it something that comes inbound and you've got to deal with it when it comes in?
Yeah, so I would say it's quite reactive. So the first thing I would do is actually answer to my customers. So if there's people on the live chat, I message on the live chat. If there's people on Instagram direct messages that need products there and then I sort that out. And then I move on to my team in India, what they need, if they're waiting for something, if they're waiting for measurements, styles, collection pieces. And then I move on to, by this time, it was probably like lunchtime. So by then, try and grab some lunch. And then I move on to my team in the UK. So if I'm working with an agency, what do they need from my end? Stockists, customer orders. So I try and balance it that way as best as I can.
Have you learned any lessons from working with people both in the UK and India, which, like, as you've gone through your business, which helps you manage that better in terms of relationships that releases might be able to benefit from?
Communication is very important. Communication is so important. The way that my team in India work and just the nature of Indians in India, they work on 100 miles per hour. So if you need to work at that pace, but also they definitely believe in a good relationship building strategy. So you need to be able to communicate with them on a friend's level as opposed to business, because I believe that is the key element of having a strong team. Whereas in London, a lot of us Londoners, we like to get straight to the point. We just want the answer and then that's it. So trying to make sure that your style of communication is different.
Your team in India, how did that work for you? So is it something which you've flown out there a lot and you've worked with them directly too, or has it been all virtual and all remote?
So just before the pandemic, I went to Delhi and I interviewed loads of studios. I went to go see tons and tons of studios, checked out what their client bases were like, because I refuse to work with studios who work with fast fashion brands. I think that's ethically incorrect. It's not what I stand for. So I wanted to make sure who they work with and who would be able to do the best quality work for us. So that was important. Someone that is going to be there when I need them, because what tends to happen is when you have international teams, again, communication can be broken down very easily. And so far, all the studios that I've worked with, they've been phenomenal. They've been amazing. So I definitely did a thorough research, thorough interview process, did absolutely everything to make sure they'd be the right people for me.
So you mentioned there about the ethical standards being quite important to you. Have you ever found any difficulties where, because you're holding to your principles, it has made it harder for you? And if that has been the case, how did you get through that? How did you manage to maintain your ethical standards whilst continuing to grow the business at the same time?
So I would have to say our minimum quantity levels. So as you know, if you go down the fast fashion route, you essentially are producing in thousands, and essentially your cost per unit goes down and you have a better margin. For us, our units are very small. We may have small units, but they get sold out very quickly, which means then we have to do another restock and another restock. But for us, we want to be ethically responsible because, one, we don't want to waste fabric. And two, we don't want, and in an ideal situation, this wouldn't be great, we don't want two of the same girls walking into the same wedding having same clothes, because that would be a disaster for them, because I've been in that situation. It's not been a good feeling. So for us, it's been more so keeping the standards high. So right now I can't go to India, but I know what's happening in the studio. I get video calls every single day. I get to see, my merchant, my pattern cutter. I get to see it. I know who is doing everything. So understanding that is a bonus for us.
Is the plan for when things go back to a bit more normal, when flights are open, for you to kind of split your time a bit more? Or is it a good balance at the moment where you've realised, because you haven't been able to go, that you can trust the team out there, so you don't necessarily need to go as much. Or maybe you just want to go out there just to meet the team because you've talked to them so much.
Ideally, I do want to split my time. I do want to. I want to be able to do a few months here and a few months in India. Altogether, it would make it so much more easier as well. So when it comes to our collection deadlines, having that back and forth, whereas it adds 3 days or 5 days for parcels to come to me for me to analyze, it could easily be done in India. So ideally, when I have bigger deadlines, it would be when I'm in India.
Interesting. So like in terms of like your ideal lifestyle in terms of the business, you'd want to be a few months at a time in India and a few months at a time here.
Yeah.
And have you done that before, like living abroad for a few months at a time? And how has that kind of impacted you mentally as well?
Never. Yeah, I've never done that, but I'm hoping next year allows me to do that. It is the plan towards the beginning of the next year to hopefully be there for a few months and come up with a better, stronger strategy for us to, rely on and then come back to the UK. And by that time, I hope I have a team as well. So I'm not doing all these crazy things all at once.
I'm just thinking from a life perspective of, for example, when I'm abroad sometimes, I get a bit of FOMO about what I'm missing out on back home. And if you're planning to live out in India for months at a time,
yeah,
do you think that's going to be a kind of a struggle for you, or do you think you're just very excited by the prospect of that?
I think I'm quite excited. It's been in the pipeline for quite some time. It's been one of my dreams to do that. I've always known that I don't want to settle in one country as right now in my younger years. Maybe later, who knows? Maybe not. Maybe I might turn around and be like, hello, hold on. Delhi isn't for me anymore. I'm coming back to the UK. But for me, it's more of a dream that I want to fulfill.
Yeah. So is it Delhi you're thinking about being based in? And have you been there a lot before, so you kind of know the lay of the land already?
Yeah. So Delhi is actually where my studios are. So everything currently works in Delhi. My family are still out and about everywhere in India. So it might mean that I live with my grandparents for a bit, live with my aunties. But right now, the aim is to be in Delhi for a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's this nomadic kind of lifestyle, right? It's where if you don't necessarily need to be in one place, then it's kind of been popularized by different people about you can have the laptop lifestyle where you could just take your laptop to India and work from there and somebody else can manage the stuff that's happening in the UK. Would that kind of be a regular thing? Do you think it's a one-off thing? You'll live there for a few months, or would it be like, say, every quarter you change your location?
I hope it's a regular thing. I think when I have a strong team in India, it's only right for me to be there for them. It's if anything, it's harder for me to be here because they are waiting for my answers and, we need to speed up the process and also be a supporting hand for them as well. So for now and probably for the next foreseeable few years, I would hope that is the plan.
So one thing about, for example, because it's one of the choices I've got to make now, right? So I don't have to be in this particular location. So a lot of people tell me, like, why don't you become a nomad? And for me, I guess I'm at the kind of stage of life where a lot of important events are happening with my friends. So let's say you went to India for 3 months and 4 of your friends got married in that time, or there's kind of 4 big birthdays, whatever it was. Would you try and like flip back and forth, or how do you kind of manage that personal side of things? Do you think you find that tough at all?
If anything, we've been tested virtually. It's crazy what we can do virtually right now. Of course, I would love to be there. But I think my friends and family know that this is on the horizon. They know that Nikita is going to be moving soon. And that is what she wants to do. And we can't stop her. So I've been quite fortunate because one of my friends, she actually lives in Canada. And she left 7 years ago. And we have a really strong relationship. So for me, relationship in terms of keeping in touch with people, I don't think that will be a problem.
Well, that's always good news, isn't it? What's one mindset shift you think people could make who are listening now that'd make a positive difference to their lives?
As cheesy as this is, just reach for the stars. Honestly, there's nothing stopping you. If you're listening to this podcast, there's a reason why you've stumbled across this podcast. It's the stars are aligning, something's happening. It's just think really positively. And not only think positively, but believe in it. Because what tends to happen is when people start businesses in the business world, they won't see sales for the first year or even 2 years. And they're like, okay, I'm done. Wasted 10 grand. I've completed it. It's done. Believe me, I made no sales in my first 6 months. And then things started speeding up. And it's only now where I could say quite comfortably that the business is in an all right position, but it takes at least a minimum of 3 years. All right position, yeah.
Yeah, high praise for yourself there.
So for me, I would definitely say, like, just don't give up. Don't give up. As crazy as some may say your ideas are, just don't give up.
Yeah, and what you did with that as well is that you had your stability and your base as well that allowed you to kind of build it on the side. And then it's just knowing the right moment, like you did, to when to make the leap and to take it full time. And it's just, yeah, that timing of that, if you can get that right, you can keep doing your day job for as long as you want until you feel comfortable, right? And it took you several years, and it takes lots of people several years. I know some people have got like businesses that are like worth millions of dollars, but they don't quit their day job because they're scared about losing their salaries. Like, but it's just that interesting balance of how different people's minds work, isn't it?
I think people will also see your passion as well. Passion in itself, the word passion is so underrated. Passion meaning like your emotions, how much time you invest, what kind of outcome you have, what kind of energy you're putting into whatever you're doing and how you're channeling that. That in itself, people will definitely sense it. Even till this day, when customers see it, they're like, we know how hard you've worked. And it's only because they understand the real concept behind the brands.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you, Nikita. Where can people hear more about you and your brand, The Naked Laundry?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys can follow us on Instagram, The Naked Laundry. Follow us on TikTok, The Naked Laundry. Definitely give it a shop as well at thenakedlaundry.com.
And the final thing to finish up on is, what's one small thing that's brought you joy recently?
Ooh, getting back into my yoga. That's been a good feeling recently.
Is yoga something you've done for a long time? Is it like a big one of your other passions in life, I guess?
It's something I enjoy. I wouldn't say I'm the best at it. It's not something I can vouch for, but it's been an on and off kind of thing. It's I think it's a mental state. Like for me personally, I only want to do yoga where I am at a clean mental state, where I'm not quite chaotic, to actually sit down and, really be in my thoughts and understand everything. So for me to get to that level has been accomplishment in the last few months.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I'd love it if you could leave me a 5-star review. It really helps to get the message out further. Wherever you're listening, it would be awesome if you could subscribe and to share on your social media channels. If you want to see more of my work and advice, you can find all of the links in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you have a lovely day.